I just shot a video burying my ass.
Well, no, we're not listening to that, Lord Jesus.
I'll never be able to walk back in a church house again as long as I live.
The music of supergroup Rascal Flatts has become a soundtrack to the lives of a whole generation. Year after year, the band has delivered unforgettable songs and sold-out tours while stretching the boundaries of country music. The men of Rascal Flatts, Gary LeVox, Jay DeMarcus, and Joe Don Rooney, each bring a special ingredient to the most successful country group of the past decade.
Gary has one of the most unique, unbelievable voices that's ever come through the town.
You can tell that he's so passionate about it. He loves it.
Every note he sings is full of emotion.
He's one of the best singers on the planet.
Jay used to be always be the guy to say, well, I'm not really a star. It's like he is a star.
Producer and writer and musician. He's a genius.
Jay can play just about anything.
Jay is the guy who really has the vision. It's tough to overstate how important his influence is on the group.
Joe Don, day one, you walk in the room, he's a star.
His stage presence is incredible. He's a great live performer.
He's such a great spirit on stage.
You're talking about a world-class guitar player and singer.
He's young and hot, and he plays great.
Their accomplishments read like the bucket list of every kid who's ever shown up in Nashville with a dream. 6 consecutive CMA Group of the Year wins, People's Choice Awards, American Music Awards, and the support of millions of adoring fans. Nevertheless, the band credits its success to a divine plan.
It just seemed like all the stars aligned, and God said, all right, this is what I want you 3 boys to do.
I think along the course of the years to come, I think we realized just how divine it was.
We're living a dream every day.
For all their incredible success, however, the guys remain 3 unassuming and unpretentious men who seem uncomfortable with their own celebrity.
They take everything they do musically serious, but they don't take themselves very serious. They'll make fun of each other.
You'll find this is the best it's going to get for you today.
You're so darn good, Jay. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go get me a cellar deal over here on Capitol.
This may be the last day Rascal Flatts is together.
It's finally getting to do my own thing. And
Being in a band and in a trio it's much like a marriage. Just no sex. Luckily.
The Rascal Flatts story is a tribute to the uncommon idea that nice guys don't always finish last. The Flatts backstory kicks off in Columbus, Ohio, with the birth of Gary Wayne Vernon Jr., who was born into a family that had more than its share of musical chops.
you know, my aunt sang, and my grandfather played guitar. My dad played lead guitar and was a singer in his high school band. My mom sang. And I think, you know, just learning how to, I think I learned how to sing harmony first before anything else. And just because everybody was so talented in our family that, you know, we just kind of jumped in whenever you felt needed.
On the other side of town, Gary's second cousin, Stanley Wayne DeMarcus Jr., nicknamed Jay, was growing up with the same family influences as Gary. His mother had even been offered a record deal.
My mom was an incredible singer, and that's how she and my father met, was playing music together. My dad was an incredible musician. He made his living in Columbus playing in bars, and it was so much fun growing up in that kind of an environment where everybody just joined in and played and sang together, and I thought everybody did that.
Meanwhile, 700 miles to the west, in the tiny town of Pitcher, Oklahoma, little Joe Don Rooney was growing up with the same kind of roots.
One of my first experiences growing up, I was probably about 6, I want to say, 6 years old, and get up and sing with my dad. He played really, really great acoustic, still does, and sings like a bird. And my mom and I and my sister Kelly would get up and sing on Wednesday nights or sometimes on Sundays at this little bitty quaint church in the back of this little white house.
Church music was a staple of each of their early lives, but Gary's grandmother, a devout Pentecostal woman, opened the door for one other kind of music.
Mainstream radio was, you know, she was like, well, no, we're not listening to that, Lord Jesus. We're not listening to that, that's not, but, you know, you put on Conway Twitty, and she said, well, that's not of the devil, not Conway.
I can tell You've never been this far before.
Back in Pitcher, Oklahoma, budding guitarist and singer Joe Don was also feeling that country music might be in his future.
I went to Kemper Arena and saw Garth Brooks. And when I saw Garth Brooks, I knew that I wanted to do something like that.
As Joe Don dreamed of playing on a big stage, Jay's musical goals were taking a different direction. Jay loved the process of creating music, the behind-the-scenes details.
I ended up being one of those nerdy, geeky kids that would lock themselves in their rooms, and I would play all day long, and I started learning how to sequence and program.
Yeah, I always knew his musical ability from childhood, you know. Just I knew that God said, okay, here, I'm going to give you about 6 instruments that you can play.
I eat, slept, breathed music. I mean, that's all I did.
He had no other option but music in his life.
Jay was consumed with music, and Gary was just as passionate about his interest.
You know, sports is what I loved in high school. And I played soccer, basketball, and baseball. And so don't follow this, kids. But I just did enough to stay eligible. You know, because I mean, I really did.
Gary was captain of his high school soccer team for 4 years and chosen as a first-team All-State selection in Ohio. He still sang in school choir, musicals, and church, but soccer was his passion.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. And, you know, and miss it, because that's actually what I wanted to do when I graduated, was be a pro soccer player.
But at age 18, Gary's mother and stepfather divorced. College and soccer quickly took a backseat to helping his family, so Gary took a job with the state of Ohio and became a working man.
You know, there for a while, when I was younger, I kind of, as a 10 and 11-year-old, felt like a father figure to my brother. You know, my brother Kevin, and kind of took on that role. And at 18, I felt that was what I should be doing again.
Gary and Jay's lives had already begun to separate during their teenage years, going to different schools with different interests. And that gap became even wider when Jay left Ohio to attend Lee University in Tennessee.
I went to Lee, got a great foundation of performing live there, and I had the key to the campus's studio. So when everybody would leave work at night, I would sneak in there and record all night long. That was my education, really.
At 18, Joe Don started college as well, but his love of performing was too strong to keep him there. He dropped out and hooked up with a traveling country band.
I got that job, and it changed my life. I got to experience what traveling is like, and getting to play music and making a little bit of cash, man. I was like, wow, this is incredible. You can actually do this and make, you know, $300 or $400 a week. This is really awesome.
At about the same time Joe Don was hitting the road, Jay's life was about to take a surprising twist as well.
When I was at Lee, I was writing a lot of Christian music and doing a lot of those demos at the campus's studio there. And my roommate at the time, Neil Coomer, was singing those demos.
Not long after mailing out several demo tapes of his songs to publishers, Jay got a call on the payphone in his dormitory from a well-known Christian music producer in Nashville.
This guy came knocking on my door. He was like, hey, dude, some guy named Don Cook is on the phone, man. He wants to talk to you. And I was like, what? You gotta be kidding me. So he called me on this beat-up payphone, and he said, man, I got your demo tape, and I gotta tell you, I love what you guys are doing. What's the name of your band? And I said, no. We're not a band. It's just some songs I've written, and this guy sang the demos for me, and I did the background vocals. And he said, well, why don't you talk to him and see if you guys want to be a band, and call me back and let me know. One thing led to another, and we were signed to Benson Records about 6 months later, and spent 4 years together as East to West.
The music nerd who just wanted to push knobs, write music, and stay in the background suddenly found himself on stage as an artist. It was but the first of the strange twists and turns that would ultimately bring the boys of Rascal Flatts together.
My immediate reaction was, oh, geez, here we go. Somebody in the family wanting to come down and break into the music business.
When Backstory continues. Rascal Flatts is a band adored by its fans. Sell-out concerts and platinum-selling albums are the byproduct of years spent entertaining its devoted audiences. But in the mid-1990s, the chances of them ever becoming a band seemed unlikely. The three men who would become Rascal Flatts were living in 3 different states, pursuing 3 different lives. Gary was in Ohio, working for the state as a counselor to the mentally disabled.
It was great, you know, you got to be able to touch somebody's life and watch them, help them develop into getting out of, you know, assisted living and moving out on their own. And, you know, so it was great. And it taught me a lot of stuff about, you know, just what kind of person I guess I was inside too, you know.
Joe Don had been in Arkansas for a year at the Ozark Mountain Hoedown and jamming at night with other musicians. But he was restless, hoping for a break.
I was ready to go to Nashville. I felt like I was ready to go. I just didn't have a connection. I didn't have a person that I knew really in Nashville to move there.
Jay remained in Nashville after a 4-year gig in Christian duo East to West ended. Struggling financially to make it as a musician and a producer, he was picking up work anywhere he could. When all his instruments were stolen from his apartment, Jay was devastated.
When I hit rock bottom, I called home and I said to Mom, I said, you know, as much as I love music and as much as I love doing what I'm doing, it's just so up and down and it's such a struggle that I think that I need to come back home and really find something that'll provide some stability for me and eventually a family someday. And my mother was the one on the phone saying, you know, I can't believe that you would say that after all that God has done for you and the doors that he's opened for you and the paths that he's led you down. The last thing you need to do is give up now.
While Jay and Joe Don soldiered on, Gary's life was taking a surprising new twist. On the weekends, he began singing in the karaoke clubs around Columbus just for fun.
So I go to, you know, like R&B places and, you know, country clubs on Sunday just to get in there and see if I could do anything, you know. And so then I started winning some of these karaoke contests.
I didn't really know at the time that Gary had such a love and an aspiration to be a singer.
And I always wanted to sing. I sang, and I still do. All day I sing. That's just the weirdest thing.
Prospects were looking up for Jay and Joe Don as well, all because of a drummer named Preston Stanfill. He would change their lives forever.
I had a bunch of friends in country music at the time, and Preston Stanfill that I was playing with in some honky-tonks around town told me that Shelley Wright needed a piano player. I desperately needed to pay the bills. We started touring together. About after a month of being there, she said, I'd like for you to be my band leader. And I accepted. It was more money.
Not long after Jay hired on with Shelley Wright, an opening for a guitar player came up in the band. Once again, it was Preston Stanfill to the rescue. He told Jay about a kid he'd met in Oklahoma.
He said, man, I know this kid that plays the crap out of guitar, you know, and he sings great, too, and you need to hear it.
I met Preston playing drums with this club down in Oklahoma. Preston and I hit it off like we'd been friends a whole life. It was just unbelievable.
He came in, he was a little cocky. You know, he was a guitar slinger, and he came in, and he was like, hey, I'm the best thing to ever come to Nashville. I tease him about it all the time.
I get the job. Preston Stanfill changed my life.
I'm so glad that I hired him. I'm so glad that Preston found him.
With 2 pieces of the puzzle now in place, there was still one missing. It began to move into place when a newly confident Gary decided to reconnect with his old childhood buddy.
Gary called me and said, I've been winning some karaoke contests, and singing's really a passion of mine. I'd love to come down and sing for you to just tell me, you know, whether or not you think I've got anything or not. And my immediate reaction was, oh, geez, here we go. Somebody in the family wanting to come down and break into the music business. But I got to tell you, the first night he came to my apartment at that time, I sat down at the piano and he started singing a Brian McKnight song, and I was just stopped dead in my tracks. I couldn't believe what was coming out of his mouth.
Despite encouragement from Jay, Gary still wasn't ready to make the move to Nashville. But after months of driving back and forth from Columbus to Nashville every weekend, the light finally dawned on him.
I was staying in my mom's kitchen one day and singing with the radio, and I thought, you know what? Man, I think I sound as good as that dude. Whoever it was, you know, I forget what it was. But so, man, I think I can do this. And at that moment, I felt like, I said, Lord, I don't think you would have given me the gift that I think that I have if you didn't want me to use it. I mean, it was the first time I've ever really truly lived on faith. And I put in my 2 weeks the next day.
Gary loaded up his truck and moved to Nashville. He and Jay started hitting clubs when Jay wasn't on the road with Shelley Wright. And before long, they had a regular gig at the Fiddle and Steel Guitar Bar in Nashville's famous Printer's Alley.
Jay had that little keyboard set up, and the stage was so small in there, he had to sit up beside the cigarette machine. And I sat on that stage all night on a stool.
He got up and just, I mean, everybody's mouths are on the floor. They're like, what in the world? Here's a guy that sounds like Stevie Wonder, but he's singing Merle Haggard tunes. This is unbelievable.
It was a great learning tool, and I would have changed it for the world. It was the best school of music that anybody could ever ask